I don't remember what she was wearing the day she found out. But I remember the sound of her silence. It hit harder than any of the words she could have thrown at me. That silence said everything. It was the kind of silence that feels like it might crack open the sky, and maybe it should have. Maybe it would have saved me from everything that came after. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name's Matthew Donovan. I'm 43 years old. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I used to run a small architecture firm downtown, had a decent house in the suburbs, 2 kids in college, and what most people would call a solid life. The kind of life people envy from the outside but never really look into. And my wife, Claire, she was the kind of woman you marry when you've convinced yourself you don't deserve better. Not because she wasn't beautiful, she was, still is. But because she was real. The kind of real that holds you up even when you're too stupid to realize you're falling apart. We met in our 20s. She was working as a nurse at WakeMed, and I was fresh out of grad school, starving for projects, half confident and half lying my way through meetings. She believed in me before anyone else did. She was the one who said, "Go for it," when I thought I couldn't. And when the money started coming in, I started drifting. I told myself I was just tired. Overworked. In need of something new. That's the lie I told myself. Her name was Elise. A client. She owned a string of boutique hotels along the coast and wanted a full redesign of one in Charleston. She was bold, blunt, sharp-tongued. The kind of woman who doesn't ask for permission when she walks into a room. And I let it happen. Drinks turned into late meetings. Meetings turned into something else. I knew it wasn't love. It was never love. It was escape. Adrenaline. Ego. Claire knew. Maybe not the details, not at first. But women like her, they feel it in their bones. Something shifts. The way you pull away in bed. The way you avoid eye contact. The way your phone becomes a permanent fixture in your hand. She asked me once, soft and careful, "Is there something you need to tell me?" And I lied. Of course not. The thing is, Claire didn't leave. Not then. She stayed. She cooked dinner. She kissed me goodnight. She smiled in front of our kids. She made it all look normal. And I let her. I let her carry the weight of my betrayal like it was her responsibility to hold our world together. For months, I thought I'd gotten away with it. Elise moved on to another project, another city, another architect. It ended as quietly as it had started, with no goodbyes, no closure. And still, Claire stayed. I didn't understand why. Maybe part of her hoped I'd come back to her. Maybe part of her wanted to punish me silently. Or maybe she just wasn't ready to start over. We were 2 people living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, but walking in separate lives. That kind of distance, it doesn't scream. It whispers, slow and steady, until the walls rot from the inside out. One night, I came home late. I'd stopped by a bar on Glenwood Avenue, had too much bourbon, stared at the bottom of the glass like it might give me answers. When I opened the door, I smelled garlic and rosemary. Claire was making chicken, just like she always did on Wednesdays. "Dinner's on the table," she said without looking up. I don't know what it was about that moment. Maybe it was the smell of home. Or the way her hands moved as she cleaned the knife. But something broke in me. I wanted to say something. Anything. But all I could do was sit down and eat the food she made with the same hands I used to hold in the dark when the world felt like too much. Then came the envelope. 3 days later, I found it on my desk. No return address. Just my name in her handwriting. Inside was a single page. No accusations. No begging. No threats. Just this. I tried. I really tried. But you're not the man I fell in love with. And I'm tired of pretending I'm okay. I'm leaving Friday. That was it. Friday came. She packed quietly, deliberately. 1 suitcase. 1 duffel bag. She didn't cry. I did. I begged. I promised. I swore on everything I could think of. But she just looked at me like I was already a ghost. And then she left. That night, I drank like the world was ending. I remember the burn of the whiskey and the ache in my chest that wouldn't go away. I got in the car. I don't remember where I thought I was going. I just drove. Fast. Furious. Empty. And then. Nothing. Just black. When I woke up, everything was gone. My legs didn't move. My body didn't feel like mine. Machines beeped somewhere in the background. Claire wasn't there. No one was. Just the sound of my own breath, ragged and strange. Later, the nurse told me I'd been in surgery for 8 hours. My spine was damaged. The doctors had done everything they could, but the odds weren't good. I'd never walk again. And here's the worst part, when I heard that, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just closed my eyes and felt relief. Like maybe the punishment fit the crime. I laid there in that hospital bed, drugged and alone, staring at the ceiling tiles. Counting them. Memorizing the cracks. Wondering if Claire would ever find out. If she'd care. If she'd even answer the phone. And then, 4 days later, I opened my eyes, and she was there. Standing by the window, arms crossed, face pale, but eyes burning with something I couldn't name. "You look like hell," she said softly. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "I heard about the accident," she added, stepping closer. "They called me. I came because, well, someone had to." That's when I saw it, not forgiveness, not love exactly, but something worse. Pity. And yet, even in that moment, I felt something shift. Like maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning. But beginnings cost something. And I hadn't even begun to pay. I used to think pain was sharp. Like a blade. Like the sting of betrayal or the slap of a bad decision catching up to you. But pain, real pain, isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the slow ache of a body that won't obey, of dignity dissolving bit by bit while you learn how to ask for help to use the bathroom. Claire moved in 3 days after that first visit. She didn't ask if I wanted her there. She didn't bring much, just a suitcase, a folded list of meds the nurse handed her, and that stubborn, impossible calm she always wore like armor. I expected her to be angry, to lecture me, to demand apologies or throw my sins in my face. But she didn't. And that was worse. She cooked. She fed me. She helped with the bedpan. And through it all, she barely looked me in the eye. There were moments she touched me, adjusting my blanket, rubbing lotion into my arms, brushing crumbs off my hospital gown, but none of it felt like the love I remembered. It felt like duty. A debt she was repaying with exact change and no interest. I tried to talk. At first. "How's Ethan doing?" I asked one morning, staring at the ceiling while she adjusted my pillow. "Our son's fine," she said without emotion. "Back in school. He'll visit when he's ready." "And Ava?" "She's in Vermont. Midterms." I nodded, even though my neck barely moved. I missed them. God, I missed them more than I missed my legs. But I didn't blame them for staying away. Why would they want to see the men who broke their mother and ended up breaking himself? She spoon-fed me oatmeal that tasted like chalk. I choked it down just to fill the silence. "You don't have to do this," I said, not for the first time. Claire didn't even blink. I know. That was it. That was always it. No explanations. No conversations. Just care. The nights were the hardest. The nurses came and went, but Claire stayed. She slept on a pull-out chair beside me, curled up with a blanket and her back to the window. I'd hear her breathing, slow and steady, like nothing in the world could reach her anymore. And I'd lie awake, thinking about all the things I never said. All the times I should have held her instead of my phone. All the apologies I rehearsed and never gave. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of her crying. Not loud. Not sobbing. Just this soft, broken sound, like someone whispering underwater. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. But I wanted to reach for her. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry," and have it mean something. But the moment passed, and when I opened my mouth, all that came out was a dry cough. She got up, wiped her face, and brought me water without a word. And then came the voicemail. It was a week later. Claire had gone out for groceries, and I was alone with the nurse, some young guy named Marcus who hummed gospel songs under his breath and called everyone sir. He was adjusting my compression socks when my phone buzzed on the tray next to me. Unknown number. One new message. Hey, Matt. It's me. I heard about the accident. I don't know what to say. I guess. I just hope you're okay. I didn't mean for anything to happen. I never wanted this. Call me if you ever need to talk. Okay. It was Elise. Her voice was lower than I remembered. Sadder. But it was her. I felt the heat rise to my face, a mixture of shame and something uglier, something like longing. Not for her, but for the man I was when she still wanted me. The man who hadn't yet faced the cost of his choices. I deleted the message before Claire came back. But that night, I felt her eyes on me longer than usual. Like she knew. Everything okay? She asked, out of nowhere. Yeah, I lied. Just tired. She didn't press. Claire never pressed. That was the thing about her, she gave you all the rope you needed. And watched you hang yourself with it. The next day, something shifted. She sat beside me and said, we need to talk about what happens next. I blinked. Next. Yes. Your recovery. Your future. This, she gestured to the room, this isn't permanent. You'll be transferred to rehab soon. You need to start thinking about how to live. Her words landed like bricks. I don't even know if I'll walk again, I said, bitterness seeping in. I know, she replied. But that doesn't mean your life is over. I laughed, cold and humorless. Easy for you to say. Her eyes narrowed. Don't do that. Do what? Pretend like you're the only one who's hurt. Like you're the only victim in this mess. I stared at her, stunned. You think I'm not angry, she continued, voice shaking. You think it didn't kill me every night I had to smile at our kids while knowing you were somewhere else, with someone else? I didn't. No. You didn't think. That was the problem. She stood up, took a deep breath, and looked away. I stayed because I loved you. Because I thought maybe you'd come back to me. But the truth is, you never really left her. Not in your head. And I was just waiting for a ghost. Silence. Heavy. Cracking. Why did you come back then? I asked quietly. Claire looked at me then. Really looked at me. Her eyes weren't angry anymore. Just tired. Because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. Because no matter what you did, you're still the father of my children. You're still the man I married. And I needed to know that you weren't dying alone. I couldn't speak. My throat closed around the words. I don't forgive you, she added. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I couldn't leave you like this. I'm not built that way. That night, I cried. Not like in the movies. No screaming, no punching walls. Just silent tears rolling down my cheeks, my body shaking in the sheets while Claire pretended not to notice. But I knew she did. Because when I finally drifted off, her hand was resting lightly on mine. They wheeled me out into the cold for the first time in a month. The air was sharp and clean, biting at my skin like some forgotten feeling I didn't know I missed. It was a Monday. I remember that because Claire insisted I start physical therapy like it was a real job. I'd laughed, but she didn't. By then, I'd been moved to a rehab facility in New Haven, only a short drive from our old house, the house I hadn't seen since the crash. Claire came by every day, like she had a time card to punch, like this was some obligation she had to complete before disappearing again. But she never spoke of leaving. And that made everything worse. The physical therapy room smelled like bleach and tired hope. People younger than me shuffled along bars like newborn deer, and others, older, hollowed-out folks, just stared out the windows, like they were waiting for something to end. The therapist assigned to me was a guy named Jordan. Mid-30s, buzz-cut, sleeve tattoos barely peeking out from under his scrubs. He smiled too easily for someone who worked with broken people all day. "You ready to fight for your life, Matthew?" he said that first day, slapping the wheels of my chair like we were teammates. I didn't answer. I just nodded, because everything still felt too raw for jokes. The exercises were humiliating. I couldn't feel my left foot at all. The right had a little spark, a flicker of nerve activity that made Jordan clap like I was some kind of miracle. But I didn't feel like a miracle. I felt like a mess someone had swept into a wheelchair and called human. Claire sat in on the first few sessions, mostly watching. Sometimes, I'd glance up and catch her eyes, fixed on my legs, her hands knotted in her lap, her mouth pressed tight. It wasn't pity. It was something worse. Memory. Regret. I wanted to say something. Something real. But I kept swallowing my words like pills I didn't want to take. A week into rehab, a nurse handed me a white envelope. No return address. My name handwritten in black ink, sharp and clean. Claire wasn't in the room when I opened it. Thank God. The letter was short. Matthew. I heard about the accident. I can't stop thinking about what might have happened if I hadn't walked away when I did. I'm sorry. I never wanted this. But maybe this is the universe trying to tell you something. Or maybe it's just punishment. I hope you find peace. That's all it said. Not Elise. Not anyone obvious. I read it again, then again, until the words stopped making sense. My hands were shaking. I didn't know whether it was anger, fear, or something worse. I didn't throw it away. I folded it back up and slid it into the drawer by my bed, then shut it like it was radioactive. That night, Claire came by with soup and a stack of old magazines. I couldn't stop looking at her hands, those same hands that used to rest on my chest after long nights, that used to curl around my fingers during movies, or reach for mine in church when no one was looking. Now they poured broth into a plastic bowl without trembling. "Everything okay?" she asked, catching me staring. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." She gave a small nod, then said nothing. That was her new habit, answering silence with silence. Like two ghosts haunting the same space, neither willing to speak the name of the past. Later that week, Jordan helped me stand. Really stand. Only for seconds. Only with two metal bars on either side of me and his full weight behind my back, but still, it was standing. Claire wasn't there. She'd taken a day off to visit her sister upstate. When I told her about the progress later that night, she just smiled. "I'm proud of you," she said. "Doesn't feel like much." "It is," she said. "Even if you don't see it yet." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Because part of me wanted to ask, would you still have come if I wasn't broken? If I was just the man who cheated and didn't pay the price? But I didn't ask. Because I was scared of the answer. 3 days later, the second letter came. Same envelope. Same handwriting. Just slipped under my door. Do you think she knows? Claire? I wonder what she'd say if she knew the truth about us. If she knew what really happened that weekend. You lied to her. You lied to yourself. But you can't lie to me. No signature this time. Just a chill that wrapped around my spine and refused to let go. I stared at the page until my vision blurred. What weekend? What truth? I knew what this was. Manipulation. Games. Someone trying to tear open a wound I'd barely started to close. But deep down, a seed of doubt began to root itself. Because there was a weekend I never told Claire about. A weekend in Cape Cod. Elise had invited me. Said it was just for closure. Said she needed to see if we could actually end it like adults. I told Claire it was a work retreat. Packed khakis and regret into a duffel bag and drove 4 hours to sin in a beachfront cottage that still smelled like other people's mistakes. I never spoke of it again. Never even thought about it after Elise left me the next month. But now, someone knew. Someone who wasn't Elise. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Claire noticed. You're pale, she said, touching my forehead. Did you sleep at all? I'm fine, I said too quickly. She narrowed her eyes. You're lying. That caught me off guard. I laughed, but it didn't reach my chest. Since when do you call me out? Claire tilted her head, voice soft but sharp. Since you lost everything but your voice. Don't waste that too. I looked away, biting the inside of my cheek. There was so much I wanted to say. About the letter. About Cape Cod. About how scared I was that I hadn't even begun to pay for all the damage I'd done. But the words stuck. And Claire, she was already moving on to the laundry, like the moment had passed. But it hadn't. Because that afternoon, when I went to my therapy session, Jordan gave me a strange look. Your wife dropped this off, he asked, handing me an envelope from the front desk. I froze. It wasn't from Claire. I opened it right there, heart thudding like a war drum. You were never as careful as you thought, Matt. What happens in the dark always comes to light. A friend. That's when I realized something that chilled me to the bone. Whoever this was, they weren't trying to hurt me. They were trying to destroy what little I had left. They say the past is never really gone, it just waits in silence, quiet and patient, until you're too weak to fight it off again. That Friday morning, I woke up earlier than usual. No nurse. No beeping for machine. Just me and the sound of Claire humming softly in the kitchenette down the hall. She always did that, hummed when she thought no one was listening. And I used to love it. That hum was once home. Now it sounded like something I didn't deserve. I sat up in bed, the muscles in my arms already aching from the effort. I still had no feeling from the waist down, and I hated how quickly I'd learned to compensate for the useless half of me. Every morning was a new reminder that I wasn't the man I used to be, and maybe never really was. But that morning, something else pressed on my chest. That damn letter. It had been 3 days since the last note, and I'd gone over it 1,000 times. The handwriting. The paper. The wording. Who knew enough about Cape Cod? Who had access to the rehab center? Who had a reason to ruin whatever was left of me? And more importantly, why now? Claire returned with coffee. She set it down beside me without a word, then opened the blinds to let the light in. Her eyes were tired. Lately, I'd started noticing the details again, her chipped nail polish, the way her fingers lingered too long on the window latch, how her smile never quite reached her eyes anymore. I'm going to pick up some groceries after your therapy, she said. Anything special you want? I shook my head, then blurted the question I'd been holding back. Did you ever meet Elise? Claire froze. It was just for a second, but I saw it, that flicker of recognition, of tension in her jaw. No, she said slowly. Why? She ever reach out to you? After the divorce? Claire turned to face me, arms crossed. No, she repeated. She disappeared. Why are you asking about her? I stared at my coffee, the steam curling like secrets. She's not the one sending the letters, I said finally. At least, I don't think so. Claire took a slow breath and walked over, sitting on the edge of my bed. Letters. I should have lied. But I didn't. Maybe I was tired of secrets. Maybe I just wanted her to know that someone else out there remembered what I'd done, and wanted to make sure I didn't forget it. I told her about the first note. Then the second. The third. I left out a few details, like how scared I was, how broken they made me feel, but I gave her enough. Claire was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up and said something I didn't expect. I need to see them. What? The letters, Matt. Show me. I hesitated. The letters were tucked in the drawer under my spare socks. I'd been too ashamed to even look at them again. But I reached over and handed them to her. She read all 3 slowly, her expression unreadable. Then she set them down and looked me dead in the eye. That weekend in Cape Cod. Was it just one night, or? I exhaled hard. My hands gripped the blanket like a man holding onto the edge of a cliff. It was 2, I admitted. 2 nights. I told you it was a work thing. Elise said she wanted to talk, closure. I knew what that meant. And I went anyway. Claire nodded slowly. But not like she was surprised. Like she'd known. Or maybe guessed and had just needed me to confirm it. Do you remember the last time we went to Cape Cod? She asked quietly. I blinked. What? The fall before everything. We stayed at that B&B with the ivy on the porch. It rained the whole time, remember? I did remember. She'd worn a green sweater and drank too much wine, and we danced in the rain like idiots on the lawn. It had been one of the last times I looked at her and thought, this is enough. I remember, I whispered. Claire gave me a sad smile. Elise was there that same weekend. My stomach twisted. How do you know that? She wasn't staying at our B&B. But she was in town. I saw her. At the coffee shop across from the harbor. She didn't see me. But I knew who she was. My mouth went dry. My heart pounded against my ribs. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to believe it wasn't what it looked like, she said. I thought, maybe he bumped into her. Maybe it's over. Maybe he's not as broken as I think he is. I swallowed hard. And now? Claire looked down. Now I think someone else knows. And they want to see what happens when I find out. That afternoon, while I was in therapy, Claire searched my room. She never admitted it outright, but I knew. The drawer where I kept the letters was slightly ajar, the socks disturbed. And the fourth letter was gone. But it didn't matter. Because that night, I found it folded inside my favorite book on the nightstand. The past never dies, Matt. It just waits until you've lied enough times to forget it. Ask Claire about Anna. I stared at the name like it was a foreign word. Anna. Who the hell was Anna? Claire returned half an hour later, arms full of laundry, acting like nothing had happened. But her smile was forced. Her hands were shaking. And I suddenly realized something I hadn't considered before. These letters weren't just about me. They were about us. And Claire was hiding something too. Later that night, after she'd fallen asleep in the recliner beside my bed, I pulled out my phone. I searched Elisa's name first, nothing. She'd deleted all her socials. Then I searched Anna, pairing it with Claire's name, our town, even the hospital she used to work at before she quit. One article came up. From 5 years ago. Connecticut nurse resigns amidst allegations of misconduct in child neglect case. Name withheld due to sealed records. Sources confirm minor involved was named Anna. My blood ran cold. I turned the screen off just as Claire stirred in the chair. She shifted, murmured something in her sleep, and I suddenly felt like a stranger in my own life. Who was this woman I thought I knew? And what did a child named Anna have to do with any of it? I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a second. Every time I closed my eyes, the name haunted me, Anna. That single word, tucked between Claire's silence and the sharp whisper of the anonymous letters, kept unspooling into something darker. Something I didn't want to look at but couldn't ignore anymore. Who was Anna? And what did Claire do that she never told me? By morning, my fingers were still gripping the phone like it was a grenade waiting to go off. The article I'd found was vague, almost scrubbed clean, as if someone wanted the story buried. A nurse resigning after a child neglect investigation. No names. Just a girl named Anna. The dates matched Claire's time at Mercy General, where she'd worked for nearly a decade. And then suddenly quit. Without warning. No explanation. Just said she was burnt out. I remember asking her if something had happened. She said no. I believed her. Because back then, I didn't ask questions I wasn't ready to hear the answers to. But now. Now I had nothing left to protect, except the truth. Claire walked in that morning with a tray of oatmeal and coffee like everything was normal. Her eyes were a little swollen. I wasn't sure if it was from sleep or tears. She set the tray down and brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. You feeling okay? She asked softly. I looked up at her. The sunlight from the window caught the edge of her profile, made her look almost translucent, like if I blinked, she might disappear. I found the article, I said. She froze. Not a dramatic freeze. Just a breath that didn't finish. A blink that lasted a beat too long. What article? You know which one. Silence stretched between us like a tightrope. Finally, Claire sat on the edge of the bed, her hands in her lap. She didn't look angry. She didn't look surprised either. Just tired. So damn tired. "How much did it say?" she asked. "Not much. Just that a nurse resigned. Child neglect. Sealed records. A girl named Anna." Claire exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding that breath for years. "She wasn't mine," she said. "But for a while, she might as well have been." I didn't speak. Just let her unravel the story like an old threadbare sweater. "I was working the night shift back then," she began. "Pediatrics. Most of the nurses avoided that wing after midnight. Too quiet. Too many ghosts. But I didn't mind. I liked the quiet. And then one night, they brought her in." Claire's voice trembled, just slightly. Anna was 7. Her mother had left her in a locked car for 8 hours in the middle of summer. By the time someone found her, she was unconscious. Severe dehydration. 3rd-degree burns on her back from the leather seats. And she didn't say a word for 2 days. My stomach turned. She was so small, Claire continued. So quiet. But every time I walked in, her eyes followed me. Like she was waiting for me to leave. Or waiting to see if I'd hurt her too. I could see it in her eyes now. This wasn't just a memory. This was a scar. They didn't have room in foster care yet, so she stayed in the hospital. Weeks turned into months. She got better, slowly. Started talking again. But only to me. I shifted, my voice low. "What happened?" Claire blinked, the weight of it returning. She asked if she could come home with me. She paused. And I said yes. My chest tightened. "You took her?" "No. Not officially. I filed the forms. Put in a foster request. I told them I'd care for her temporarily. But the system moved slow. Meanwhile, the mother was trying to get her back. Court battles. Appeals. And one night, Anna had a fever. Delirious. I stayed up with her the whole night." Claire looked down at her hands. She called me Mama. Just once. I didn't correct her. A lump rose in my throat. "What happened next?" I asked. Claire swallowed. 3 days later, the mother won custody back. I stared at her. "You're kidding." She shook her head. She had a good lawyer. Said the whole thing was a misunderstanding. Promised she'd changed. They gave her supervised visits first. Then partial custody. Then full. I could feel my hands tightening into fists under the blanket. "And Anna?" Claire's voice cracked. She came back 3 weeks later. Unconscious again. Internal bleeding. Blunt force trauma. My heart stopped. She didn't make it. The room fell silent. The world outside, the faint hum of a delivery truck, birdsong from the trees, all of it just stopped. "She died, Matt," Claire whispered. And I wasn't there. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to something like that? "But it wasn't your fault," I managed. Claire gave a bitter smile. "That's not what the hospital thought. I was supposed to report the mother when I suspected abuse. I waited too long. I thought I could fix it quietly. Thought I was protecting Anna from the system. But I failed. So they asked me to resign. Quietly. No press. No charges. Just leave." I reached for her hand. For the first time since the accident, I was the one offering comfort. "You never told me," I said. "You never asked," she replied. That one stung. Because it was true. For so long, we were both living in shadows. Her secret buried beneath guilt and grief. Mine beneath lust and lies. And now here we were, 2 broken people sitting in the ruins of what used to be a marriage. But we weren't done unraveling yet. Because just as Claire wiped her eyes and stood up to clear the tray, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. No caller ID. I answered instinctively. A distorted voice, no emotion, no introduction. "Now you both know. But the game's not over, Matt. You should have told her everything too. You still haven't, have you? I froze. Claire turned to me, her eyes narrowed. Who was it? I stared at the screen. The call had already ended. I don't know. But I did know what they meant. Because there was still one thing I hadn't told Claire. And it wasn't about Elise. It was about the night of the accident. The real reason I got behind the wheel. And the person I had called just before everything went black. The moment I ended that call, something shifted between Claire and me. It wasn't just the words the voice said, it was the way she looked at me afterward. Eyes fixed. Quiet. Alert. Like she could sense there was another crack in the foundation she thought we were finally rebuilding. And she was right. She always had that instinct, especially when it came to me. Who was that? She asked again, more firmly this time. I hesitated. Not because I wanted to lie. But because telling the truth would bring everything crashing down. And we were just starting to find each other again. Claire. I started, but the words stuck. My throat tightened. My body suddenly felt too heavy for the bed. You said you didn't know, but you do. She folded her arms. Is it Elise? Did she call you again? No, I said quickly. It wasn't Elise. And technically, that was the truth. She waited, unmoving. The oatmeal on the tray sat untouched. A strange irony. The woman who used to rush through mornings to make sure I had breakfast before work now sat across from me like a prosecutor at trial. So I did what I should have done weeks ago. I told her. I wasn't just drunk that night, I began, voice low. That was only half of it. Claire narrowed her eyes. What else? I was angry, I said. Not at you. At myself. At Elise. At everything. And when I left the hotel that night, I made a phone call. To who? I looked down. To your sister. Silence. Thick. Suffocating. Claire stared at me like I'd just confessed to a crime she didn't know existed. Jennifer. She whispered. You called Jennifer. I nodded slowly. She stepped back like I'd struck her. Why would you call my sister? My breath caught. Because. I knew she hated me. I thought if anyone would tell you the truth about what I did, it would be her. Claire shook her head in disbelief. Wait, so that night, you were planning to confess? Not planning, I said. I did. I told her everything. Every detail. About Elise. About the hotel. I was drunk and out of control, and I needed someone to punish me. Someone to make sure you'd leave, because I didn't deserve you. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She told me she wouldn't tell you. Said she didn't want to hurt you that way, I said. Then she hung up. Claire's hands trembled. She knew this whole time. And never said a word. She said she was protecting you. Claire's laugh was short and bitter. No. She was protecting you. And I bought it. I bought every word she said after the accident. All the pity. All the concern. The way she kept telling me, you're so strong for staying by his side. I could feel the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. I thought if I wrecked everything, you'd finally see me for who I was, I said. But you came back. And when you did, I was afraid to admit that I'd made it worse. That I dragged your family into it. Claire didn't say anything. She walked to the window and stared outside for a long time, arms crossed tightly, like she was holding herself together with sheer will. Do you think she sent the letters? I asked finally. The ones about Anna. Claire was quiet. Then, no. Jennifer would never bring up Anna. She was the one who helped me through that. Drove me home the day I resigned. Stayed up with me all night while I cried. She was the only one who knew the full story besides you. And she swore she'd never bring it up again. Then who? She turned back to me, her voice low, almost afraid. There's only one other person who could have known about both things. I stared at her. Elise. Claire nodded slowly. She worked in HR at the hospital, remember? She could have accessed the resignation file. She would have known I left suddenly. And if she knew you were married when you met her, she'd have a motive, I finished. We were both silent, our thoughts racing. I have to talk to her, I said. Claire blinked. You can't. She's gone. Gone where? She quit 2 days after your accident, Claire said. Didn't say why. No forwarding address. Nothing. Just disappeared. I stared at her. You knew this. I didn't think it mattered, she said. Until now. I reached for my phone. My hands were still shaky from the morning's call, but I dialed Elisa's number anyway. Straight to voicemail. Claire leaned against the wall. If she's behind this, she's not doing it just to hurt you. She's trying to destroy what little we have left. My voice dropped. Or she wants me back. Claire looked at me sharply. She always said I was running from something, I continued. That I was only staying with you because it was safe. That she was the only person who really saw me. And what did you say to that? I told her she was wrong. Claire didn't respond. She just walked over and placed my untouched tray on the dresser. Do you still believe that? I met her eyes. Yes, I said. I do. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure anymore. Because Elise didn't just vanish. And someone, maybe her, had gone out of their way to dig up the ugliest pieces of our past. And I had a feeling it wasn't over. Later that night, I was alone in the living room, flipping through the mail Claire had brought in. Most of it was bills or junk, but one envelope stood out. No return address. Same neat handwriting. Inside was a photo. Claire. Me. And Elise. Smiling at a company holiday party 2 years ago. Arms linked. Fake grins. On the back, a single sentence in black ink. 2 lies down. 1 more to go. My blood ran cold. I turned to the hallway. Claire. She appeared instantly, seeing the photo in my hands. What now? She whispered. I looked at her. I think someone's trying to finish what I started. And if we don't figure it out soon. I turned the photo back over. That smile on Elisa's face, too wide, too deliberate, burned into my mind. We're both going to lose everything. The past has a strange way of catching up with you, not like a storm, loud and violent, but more like a whisper that grows louder the more you try to ignore it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, staring at the photo someone had mailed us. Claire had gone to bed without a word. I couldn't blame her. Everything I'd told her, the call to her sister, the letters, Elisa's disappearance, was too much for one night. But I knew it wasn't over. Whoever sent the photo wasn't finished. And neither was I. By morning, Claire had already left for work. She'd gone back to the pediatric unit part-time, something she said helped her feel normal again. She needed space, and I gave it. But I also made a call. To Jennifer. The last person who still owed me the truth. She picked up on the second ring. I was wondering when you'd call, she said. Her voice was tight, but not surprised. You sent the photo, didn't you? I asked. No, she said. But I know who did. I froze. Who? There was a pause. Then a name I hadn't heard in years. Lara. I blinked. Lara. From the hospital. Jennifer sighed. Lara Gray. Claire's old friend. She was your nurse for a few months after the accident, remember? I barely remember anything from those days. Well, she remembers everything, Jennifer said. Especially the night she overheard your conversation with Elise. I tried to connect the dots. She sent the letters. And the photo. She said she couldn't watch you manipulate Claire anymore. Said she wanted to make sure the truth came out, piece by piece. Why wouldn't she just tell Claire directly? She didn't think Claire would believe her. So she did what you used to do, Matt. She played games. I swallowed hard. That familiar sting in my gut again, shame. Guilt. Where is she now? Still in Chicago, I think. But she's quiet. Keeps to herself. I leaned back in my chair. Why tell me this now? Because you've already lost everything once. Don't lose it again. She hung up. I stared at the wall for a long time after that. Lara. Quiet, steady Lara. I remembered her now, how gentle she was, how she'd always glance away when I asked too many questions. I thought she pitied me. Maybe she did. But she also saw me for what I was. A liar trying to become a man. And I was running out of time. When Claire came home that night, I was waiting at the door. I know who sent the letters, I said. She set her bag down slowly. Who? Lara Gray. Claire looked stunned. Lara. My friend Lara. She overheard me and Elise. After the accident. She thought I was still hiding things from you. Claire leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed. And were you? Yes, I admitted. But not the way she thought. I wasn't cheating anymore. I wasn't lying to Elise. I was lying to myself. About why I needed you to come back. Claire didn't speak. Just waited. I wanted to believe I'd changed because of the accident. That the pain, the chair, the long nights alone, that it made me better. I swallowed. But I didn't change because I got hurt. I changed because you came back. Because for the first time in my life, someone loved me after I'd given them every reason not to. Her eyes softened, but only a little. I don't expect you to forgive me, I said. I know it's been a mess from the start. But I can't keep waking up wondering when you're going to walk away for good. So if you want to leave, Claire, leave. She walked toward me slowly. I did leave once, Matt. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I know. But I came back. Not because I forgot what you did. But because I saw who you were trying to become. She looked down. I didn't come back for the man you were, she said. I came back for the man you could be. My chest ached. Not from injury, something deeper. Something human. And now? I asked. Claire stepped closer, until we were just inches apart. Now. I need to know you're still fighting for him. I reached for her hand, carefully. I am. Every day. A long silence passed between us. Then Claire pulled me into a hug, not desperate, not dramatic. Just solid. Present. Real. A few days later, I tracked down Lara. I met her at a small cafe just outside the city. She looked older than I remembered, tired, worn, but still kind. Always kind. You found me, she said, sipping her coffee. You made it easy, I said. The handwriting. The photo. I wanted you to know someone was watching, she said. That someone still cared about Claire. I nodded slowly. Thank you. She looked surprised. You're not angry. I was, I said honestly. But then I remembered, I used to do the same thing. Play with people's truths. Only difference is, I did it for me. You did it for her. Lara smiled faintly. You really have changed. Still working on it. She reached into her purse and handed me an envelope. What's this? I asked. The last photo, she said. I was going to send it, but something told me not to. I opened the envelope. It was a picture of me and Claire. Recent. Taken through the window of our house. She was pushing my wheelchair down the garden path. I was looking up at her. And smiling. Not fake. Not forced. Just, grateful. Lara stood up. Tell her I said hi. And then she walked away. That night, Claire and I had dinner on the porch. She made pasta. I spilled some on my lap. We laughed harder than we had in months. I talked to Lara, I said. Claire raised an eyebrow. How'd that go? She gave me something, I said, pulling the photo from my pocket. Claire took it, studied it, and smiled. I remember that day, she said. You were telling me about the dream you had. The one where you ran again. Still a good dream, I said. She placed the photo on the table. It's not the running that matters, Matt, she said. It's who you're running toward. And I knew she was right. Because love wasn't in the apologies or the promises. It wasn't in the pain or the punishment. It was in the everyday. The way she brought me coffee without asking how I slept. The way I learned to read her silences. The way we learned to sit in the same space again, without the weight of everything that came before us. Love, I realized, wasn't just what she gave me. It was what I finally learned to give back. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a man trying to deserve it. I felt like someone who finally understood what it meant. To stay. To fight. To love.